Well, we've got correspondents across Libya following events for us. James Space joins us now live from Tripoli Central Hospital, I understand. James, tell us about the situation there. How heavy is the traffic at that hospital?
Well, as you know, clashes are continuing across Tripoli, and for that reason they're very, very busy in the hospital. Patients coming through all the time. There are patients being brought into the hospital with serious wounds. Let us show you in here in one of the wards if we can. We don't want to get in the way of the medical staff here, but you can see the people that are being treated here. You can see some of the grieving relatives that are by the bedsides. This is a very difficult situation for the people of Tripoli and for the hospital staff here, who are really struggling to cope. The Libyan state has reasonably good medical care systems, but not something that can cope with something like this, with the sort of battles that we've been seeing in the capital city in the last few days. They say the hospital is overwhelmed. They say they're bringing all the staff they can to try and deal with the situation, but they say that's not enough. The doctors here telling me that they urgently need medical supplies. In fact, one of the doctors a moment ago wrote out this list, which I will try and post on one of our websites later on, and maybe some international aid organisations or the UN might be able to help with some of this. Drugs on one side and other medical supplies on the other, which they say if they don't receive, they will find it difficult to treat many more patients.
And James, any idea on the number of casualties inside that hospital? And who are the people who are being treated? Are they fighters or are they civilians who've been caught in the crossfire?
I'm afraid it's rather hard for me to hear your questions, a little bit of interference here, but there are a very large number of casualties. I don't have exact figures, but many more than they'd normally deal with. You can see even here, though, there are people trying to make clear their allegiance, and the allegiance in this hospital is pretty clear. That flag is the old flag of the monarchy. It's the flag of the opposition movement, the rebel movement, and it's what these people and many people you speak to in Tripoli believe will soon be the new flag of Libya.
I was asking you about the victims, James, in that hospital. Any idea of who they are exactly, whether they are fighters, whether they are rebel forces or Gaddafi loyalists, or whether it's just simply civilians who've been caught in the crossfires?
Well, there are many people in many beds here. I've been in the hospital for a couple of hours now, and it's fair to say that the majority, like this gentleman here, are young men. We assume that most of them are men of fighting age, and they're people who've been involved in the direct clashes, in the small arms battles that are going on up and down this city. But at the same time, Gaddafi loyalists control some pockets still in this city, and they're using those pockets to fire heavier weapons. We're still seeing mortars being fired. We're still seeing Grad missiles being fired. Those are being fired in an urban area, a place with so many civilians. So there are, in addition to the young men, there are other people who are being injured in these ongoing battles.
And in what spirits, James, are the people in that hospital who are being treated? Obviously they're injured and so on, but what are their thoughts on what's going on inside the country right now, particularly in Tripoli, and the fighting and the fact that rebel forces have gained control of much of the city right now?
Well, we've spoken to some of the people here, as we spend all our time speaking to people across the city. The general mood of the people you speak to is pretty positive. But I have to say, when you're out and about, you're really mostly only meeting the fighting men, the opposition fighters, and they would be pleased with the situation. I do think it'll be interesting when perhaps the situation calms down to see what ordinary people think, because at the moment most of the ordinary people are fearful for their lives. They're hiding in their homes. They have a really difficult situation because there's limited electricity and water supplies in this city. Very few shops open. I saw the first shop I've seen in a few days open just an hour ago, but everywhere else in the city seems to be boarded up, and even in the one shop that was open there wasn't much to buy.
Well, if you're just joining us here on Al Jazeera's James Space inside Tripoli Central Hospital right now, telling us about the situation in that hospital. James, once again, for the viewers who are just joining us, I mean, we've rarely seen images of hospitals during this conflict, especially in Tripoli. Just remind us of, what's happening inside that hospital right now and the needs for the staff that are there. They're overwhelmed, you've told us. Tell us once again about the situation inside Tripoli Central Hospital.
Well, let me show you once again. If Ryan, our cameraman, goes ahead, we might be able to show you some more pictures, Ryan, of some of the other people if we walk forward, Ryan, and show... In fact, we've just got to get out of the way because I think another stretch is coming by. No, it's going to a different ward. If Ryan walks forward, he can show you some more of the pictures from here, and maybe we can show you a couple more of the patients. It is a really desperate scene here. A great big list of stuff they've given me that they urgently need. I'm afraid I'm not a medical expert. I don't know this list of all these drugs. The only one I recognise is penicillin, but they need IV sets, they need syringes, they say, chest sets, they need gauzes, they need oxygen cylinders, all the sort of basic supplies that a hospital needs. They say they are currently, Folly, running short of. This gentleman just getting stitches in his head, right, from a wound that he's received.
James, what sort of injuries have the people sustained there? Are the doctors telling you what sort of injuries they've been treating?
Well, I think from what I've heard, the majority of the injuries are gunshot wounds, and that is probably to be expected given the heavy gun battles that are still going on. You do, even in this hospital a moment ago we heard it, you hear the gunfire just outside the door. Most of the gunfire is celebration. It's opposition fighters celebrating a victory that isn't quite there yet, but they believe is near. But at the same time as those celebrations, there are real battles going on in this city. There are pockets, as I say, of Gaddafi forces, but there are also Gaddafi forces moving around the city. There are snipers also around the city. Remember also, many of these opposition fighters have had very little training. There are some self-inflicted wounds, the opposition shooting their own people because they don't recognise another band of fighters.
Interesting to see that it's mostly men that are being treated in that ward that you're in right now, James Space. I thank you very much for bringing us the latest there from Tripoli's Central Hospital. Again, you're watching their exclusive Al Jazeera images from Tripoli Central Hospital. James Space telling us about the very desperate situation in that hospital. Doctors needing a lot of medicine to treat the injured people inside that hospital. James, thank you very much for that update.